Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a text that, well, it's fascinated leaders, strategists, even business titans for literally thousands of years. Sun Tzu's Art of War.
It really is remarkable, isn't it? Such a short book, but just packed with insights, applicable way beyond just, conflict.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, our sources are excerpts from a really solid translation and its commentary. So we've got historical context, the structure, key principles.
Right. And our mission, yours and ours, is to sort of navigate through all that historical detail and philosophy.
And pull out those really potent nuggets, yeah. The stuff that still resonates.
Exactly. Like finding the enemy's weak points, you could say. What is it about this ancient writing that still grabs us? Let's unpack it.
Okay, so first hurdle, who actually was Sun Tzu? There's a bit of a mystery here, right?
There really is. I mean, the traditional account, the one you find in Sima Qian's Shihchi, places him around 512 BC, a general for King Hulu of Wu.
Involved in campaigns against the state of Shu.
Yeah, credited with successes there. That's the standard story. But here's the twist.
Uh-oh.
A major contemporary record, the TSO Shi Yuan, it covers that exact period.
Please.
Zero mention of Sun Wu, nothing.
Wow. Okay, so that throws a wrench in things. People doubt he even existed?
Some scholars do, yeah. Or at least they doubt he was this major general. Maybe the book was written later. Maybe by, like, a scholar, not a soldier.
Interesting. So the man's a puzzle, but what about the book itself? Does it feel like it belongs to that era?
Well, the sources we looked at argue pretty strongly that, yes, the work is genuinely ancient. It fits that specific window.
How so?
It mentions the rivalry between Wu and Yue. That conflict really heated up between roughly 506 BC and 473 BC.
Okay.
And the text specifically talks about Wu and Yue men, normally enemies, helping each other if they're stuck in the same boat in a storm. That kind of detail.
Pins it right to that time and place. That makes sense.
It really does. And, the actual advice in the book, it feels very practical. Like it came from someone who'd actually been on campaign, not just theorizing.
Right. You can almost smell the campfire smoke. What about the structure? It's 13 chapters now, but I read something about an 82-chapter version.
Yeah, the Awareness issue mentions that longer one. But the thinking is the 13 chapters we have, that's the original core. The 82 chapters were probably like a later collection, maybe with commentary bundled in.
So we're dealing with the essential text and the earliest major commentator, Cao Cao, the famous general.
That's him, Wei Wuti, a military genius in his own right centuries later. His notes are the first big ones we have, and they're known for being really brief, really practical. Kind of fitting, actually.
It really is. Okay, so before we get into the sneaky tactics, Sun Tzu starts with these 5 foundational factors, things a general must weigh up.
Yeah, these are like the absolute bedrock. First, the moral law.
Which isn't quite morality as we think of it.
No, not exactly. It's more about the bond between the ruler and the people. Are they totally aligned? Will the people follow their leader into danger without question? Unity, basically.
Okay, what's next?
Heaven. This is like the timing, the weather, the seasons, day and night, cold and heat, the whole natural environment rhythm.
Got it. And Earth.
That's the physical landscape. Distances, terrain type, is it open, is it narrow passes, danger spots, safe spots. Geography matters a lot.
Makes sense.
Number 4.
The commander. The leader's own qualities. Wisdom, sincerity, benevolence. But also courage and strictness. It's a mix of, standard virtues and specific military ones.
Right. Courage and strictness feel very military. And the last one, method and discipline. This is the nitty-gritty. Army organization, ranks, logistics, supply lines, controlling costs, the whole system.
So, wow, it's incredibly comprehensive. It's not just get good soldiers, it's everything. From the public's morale right down to the supply chain.
Exactly. He's saying you have to assess all this before you even think about conflict. Compare yourself to the enemy on these 5 points. Who has the people's backing? Better leader? Better grasp of heaven and earth? Whose army is more disciplined?
Like that story about Cao Cao cutting his own hair when his horse damaged crops just to show he followed the rules too.
Right. Shows how seriously he took that discipline factor. Sun Tzu basically says, know these 5, you win. Ignore them, you lose. It's all about that deep preparation and understanding.
Okay, so with that foundation laid, now we get to maybe the most famous Sun Tzu idea. All warfare is based on deception.
Yes, this is absolutely fundamental. It's not about brute force primarily. It's about manipulating the enemy's perception, making them see what you want them to see.
So appearing weak when you're strong, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Appear unable when you're able. Seem far when you're near, near when you're far. Make them misjudge everything. The sources even mention Wellington being a master of this, concealing his true strength.
It sounds, well, clever, almost cunning. And it leads to what he calls supreme excellence.
Yes, and this is mind-blowing for a military text. Supreme excellence is breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting.
Without fighting, how is that even possible in war? Why aim for that?
Because war is ruinously expensive. The sources really hammer this point. It drains the state's resources. It burdens the people with huge taxes, families disrupted. Sieges are the worst. They take months just to prepare the equipment, the mounds.
And that delay breeds frustration, bad decisions.
Totally. Generals get impatient. They launch these suicidal assaults like swarming ants, he calls it, lose huge numbers of men for nothing.
Yeah.
Think Port Arthur, those terrible losses.
Right.
So the truly skilled leader, they win, subdue armies, take cities, overthrow kingdoms without bloody battles, without long sieges, without grinding campaigns. That's the art of attacking by stratagem.
Okay, that shifts the whole perspective. It's about brains over brawn, really. Which leads us to Cheng and Qi, direct and indirect forces. These sound a bit abstract.
They can be, yeah. Commentators have puzzled over them. But the basic idea is about maneuver, about keeping the enemy completely off balance. Cheng is like the conventional force, the obvious move that fixes the enemy's attention.
What they expect to see.
Exactly. And Qi, that's the unexpected, the surprise maneuver, the diversion, the thing that actually wins the day.
So you distract them with Cheng, then hit them with Qi.
Pretty much. But here's the genius part. They're interchangeable. What's direct 1 minute can become indirect the next. The combinations are literally endless, like musical notes or colors or tastes. It keeps the enemy guessing, totally confused about your real plan.
Like a feint, then the real attack from somewhere else.
Precisely. And this ties into the army's energy. The initial charge, the onset, might be like a rushing torrent. But the decision the moment you strike, that needs to be like a falcon hitting its prey. Precise. Calculated.
Timing again. That falcon analogy, is it about holding back until the perfect moment?
The sources suggest that, yeah, like Nelson at Trafalgar holding his fire. Patience, then decisive action. A good fighter is, quote, terrible in his onset, prompt in his decision.
And you use deception to create that moment.
Right. Keep the enemy moving, reacting to false appearances, like Sun Pin tricking Pang Tuan by reducing his cooking fires each night, made Pang Tuan think the army was deserting, lured him into a reckless pursuit.
Right into a trap. Clever.
Very. And when you use Cheng and Qi Shuel, you build this momentum, this energy. It's like rolling logs down a hill. You're harnessing the situation, not just fighting against it.
It's directing energy, creating confusion.
Right.
Brilliant. Okay, this feels connected back to one of those foundational factors, earth. Terrain.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Sun Tzu gets specific. In mountains, sit near valleys, near rivers, let the enemy cross first. Salt marshes, cross them fast. Level ground, get high ground to your right and rear. Basic but vital military geography.
High ground always seems good. Sunny spots, too.
Always preferred. And you have to know the danger zones, ravines, marshes, thickets. Avoid them yourself. Try to push the enemy towards them.
The sources also mentioned reading signs, like birds flying up, meaning an ambush.
Yeah, old school fieldcraft. Startled animals mean a surprise attack is coming. Different kinds of dust clouds tell you if it's chariots, infantry, or maybe just foragers. It's about reading the environment for clues about the enemy.
Okay, but the big analogy for terrain and tactics is water, right?
Yes. Military tactics are like unto water. It's such a perfect image.
How so?
Well, water naturally avoids high ground, seeks the low ground. It avoids strength, flows towards weakness. Its course is totally shaped by the land it passes over.
Ah, I see. So the soldier shapes their victory based on the enemy they face.
Exactly. Just like water has no constant shape, warfare has no constant conditions. You must adapt.
So the ability to change tactics, to modify your approach based on the specific enemy, the specific ground right now, that's the mark of genius.
That's what Sun Tzu calls a heaven-born captain. Pure adaptability.
Adaptability is huge. And the person doing the adapting, the commander, let's circle back to their role, the potential problems too.
Right. He lists 6 ways a general can fail their army, 6 calamities.
Yeah.
Things like slight, insubordination, collapse, ruin, disorganization, rout.
And these are the general's fault, not just bad luck.
Mostly, yes. Flight happens if you attack with insufficient force. Insubordination. Maybe your officers are weak, but the soldiers are too aggressive. Collapse. The general himself is weak, lacks authority. Disorganization comes from unclear orders. You get the idea.
It's a heavy burden. It takes more than just being brave.
Definitely. Clear thinking, firm authority, knowing your own and the enemy's strength, which leads to a really tough principle.
Which is?
If fighting will bring victory, the general must fight, even if the ruler says no. But if it won't bring victory, they must not fight, even if the ruler orders it.
Ooh, that's giving the general on the ground massive autonomy. Almost sounds like insubordination itself.
It's radical, isn't it? But the idea is the commander in the field knows the situation best. Political interference from afar can be disastrous. Napoleon apparently said something similar.
But that authority needs to be wielded properly. You can't just be, like, the nice guy general who can't enforce orders.
Absolutely not. Sun Tzu warns against that. The indulgent general who lacks authority, who's kind but can't maintain discipline, their soldiers become like spoiled children, useless.
Discipline is key then, like that story of Lu Meng executing an officer for a minor infraction even though he was upset about it.
Exactly. Duty and discipline had to come first. It's that tough balance. Wisdom, benevolence, but also strictness and unwavering authority.
Okay, shifting slightly. What about managing the troops on the move? Maneuvering psychology.
Yeah, he talks about using signals, gongs, drums, flags to keep the army unified, focused. Psychologically, he notes troop spirit is usually highest in the morning, fades later. So a smart general attacks when the enemy is likely feeling sluggish.
Makes sense. And conserve your own energy.
Always. Be near the goal while the enemy is still traveling. Rest while they struggle. Be well fed while they're hungry. Basic, but effective.
He also gives tactical advice, right? Like avoid attacking uphill, don't chase guys pretending to run away.
Yes, classic stuff. Don't attack troops whose morale is super high. Don't fall for obvious bait.
And then there's that weird advice about surrounding an enemy. Leave them an escape route. Why on earth would you do that?
That sounds crazy, but it's pure psychology.
Yeah.
If an enemy is totally trapped, they'll fight with the ferocity of desperation, like cornered animals. So you leave them what looks like a way out. Lure them into thinking they can escape.
Yeah.
It lowers their fighting spirit just enough.
So
You crush them. Don't push a desperate foe too hard. Think of soldiers who've burned their boats. They have nothing left to lose.
That makes a strange kind of sense, which connects to desperate ground, right?
Exactly. One of the 9 situations. And the principle is paradoxical. Put your own army in deadly danger, and they'll survive. Plunge them into desperate straits, they come through safe.
How does that work? Putting your own men in more danger makes them safer.
It taps into that same desperate courage. The source gives that amazing example of Han Xin at Qingxing's Pass. He deliberately lined his army up with their backs to a river.
Which is like military tactics 101. Don't do that. You need room to retreat.
Right. But by removing any possibility of retreat, he forced his men to fight like demons. They had to win. He also used a trick with flags to make the enemy think their own camp had been taken, adding confusion. That combo, sheer desperation plus psychological warfare, won the day.
Wow. So extreme situations can unlock extreme performance.
They can. And sometimes, Sun Tzu says, the general even has to mislead his own army. Feed them false reports, keep the real plan secret until the last minute.
Keep his own side in the dark.
Yeah. Cha Kum's commentary says something like, the troops share in the victory spoils, but they can't share in the planning beforehand. Lead them like a shepherd, the sources say, where the sheep trust the leader but have no idea of the destination.
That requires incredible trust, and a general willing to keep secrets even from their own people.
Okay, this feels like a good place to talk about what Sun Tzu calls maybe the most vital element, spies.
Yes, intelligence. He dedicates a whole chapter to it,
Right.
and his justification is powerful. He says war causes immense suffering, drains the state. To drag it out because you're too cheap to pay for spies. That, he argues, is inhumane.
Wow, that really reframes espionage. It's not just sneaky, it's a moral necessity to shorten the war.
That's his argument. Foreknowledge is key, and it doesn't come from magic or guessing. It comes from people, from spies.
And he has categories for them, like different types.
5 classes, yeah. It's this whole intricate system. You've got local spies using people from the enemy's area, inward spies turning enemy officials, maybe through bribery or exploiting grievances.
Okay.
Then converted spies, these are crucial. Enemy spies you capture and turn to your side. They feed false info back or spy on their own side for you.
Doomed spies. These are your own agents you deliberately feed false info to. They get caught by the enemy, deliver the misinformation, and are likely killed. But they serve their purpose.
Grim, but effective, I guess. And the last type.
Surviving spies. These are your standard agents who go in, get info, and come back out. The sources say they need to be smart, tough, resilient. There's even a story of one spy being so bold, he enforced discipline in the enemy camp while spying.
Huh. That takes guts. So it's not just one spy, it's this whole web gathering info, spreading disinformation.
Exactly, a complex network. And the relationship with spies. Sun Tzu says it needs to be closer than any other. They need to be rewarded generously, and secrecy must be absolute, like mouth-to-ear communication.
And the general needs serious skills to manage
Oh,
this.
yeah. Sagacity to tell truth from lies,
Yeah.
sincerity to build trust, ingenuity to stop your spies from being turned back against you. It's incredibly delicate.
And the converted spy, the double agent, is the most important.
That's what the sources suggest. They're the key that unlocks the whole system, allowing you to use the other types effectively. So treat them very well.
It's fascinating how central intelligence is. He basically says an army without spies is blind and deaf.
Fundamentally crippled. It's like water essential for movement, for knowing where to go and what to avoid.
Okay. Before we wrap up, the sources also touched on attacking with fire.
Briefly, yeah. Methods like burning enemy camps, supplies, arsenals. You need the right conditions, weather, timing, and how to react if the enemy uses fire against you.
But it still comes back to that core principle, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Only move if there's a real advantage. Only use troops if you stand to gain something concrete. Only fight if the position is truly critical. Anger passes, but destruction is permanent.
So, caution, prudence, war is a last resort.
Exactly. The wise ruler and the good general aim for peace and keeping the army intact. They don't gamble recklessly.
So, after this deep dive, what's the big picture takeaway?
Well, we've gone through this historical puzzle of Sun Tzu himself, those 5 foundational factors, the core idea of deception and winning without fighting using Cheng and Shi, the vital role of terrain and adapting like water, the demands and dangers of command, harnessing desperation, and finally the absolute necessity of spies and intelligence.
And it's so clear, isn't it? This isn't just a military manual. It's about strategy in the broadest sense. Leadership, information, planning, psychology, adaptability. These apply everywhere.
Everywhere. Business, negotiation, even just navigating complex life situations, it pushes you to think deeper, look for leverage beyond just brute force.
As we finish up, what's the one idea from Sun Tzu that really sticks with you?
For me, I think it's that emphasis on winning without the fight being the highest achievement. It feels so.
Mm-hmm.
Contrary to instinct sometimes, but incredibly wise.
Yeah, I agree. That resonates. So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Sun Tzu says supreme excellence is winning without fighting. In our own lives, in our world full of challenges, how much do we really invest in understanding the situation fully, in preparing meticulously, in finding clever, indirect ways to achieve our goals, winning through stratagem and intelligence, instead of just jumping straight into costly head-on confrontations?